Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming back my good friend Jill Schoelen, the star of such 80s classics as DC Cab and The Stepfather, That Was Then, This Is Now, The Curse, and then the 90s classic Popcorn. Having her back on the show today to talk about my journey, because she was so lovely and so interested in me in the last conversation we had that I want to tell her about my journey of how I got to this point, plus other stuff I want to get into as well. She's got a reality show with some other 80s movie actresses called Sugar and Scream coming out that we touched on a little bit last time, but let's see if we can talk more about it this time, if it's still not too early. So, here is my new interview with Jill Schoelen. Hey, Jill.
I'm so sorry I declined you because I'm like, I don't know this number. And then I went, wait a minute, that number seems really familiar. And then I looked at the time.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
It happens. It happens.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I had probably the best sleep that I've had in months, I tell you.
Oh, that's great. I had a terrible night's sleep last night, so good for you.
Oh, did you have nightmares?
No, I worked late and I couldn't settle back down. I just couldn't do it. You know?
Oh.
You know how that is.
Yeah, I do. More than anybody, I do.
Yeah.
The other night, I was on YouTube, and a search came up, or not a search, a suggestion came up, and it was a movie of yours I had never seen before called Adventures in Spying.
Oh, dear Lord above. You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, it came up, and I couldn't get through it. I thought it was really boring, but I watched you in it, and I thought you were pretty good.
That's really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those low budget movies, that just, I guess, fell through the cracks.
Well, the thing is, the guy that wrote and directed it, he's a really big TV commercial director, and I can't remember exactly. I think I'm sure I worked with him before, but maybe I didn't. I have a vague memory that I worked with him on a couple of really big commercials. So when I say big, I mean like Coke or Diet Coke, really huge commercials of the day.
Yep.
And he had his own production company. He owned all his equipment that he would have on these shoots, and he spent, I think, $1 million on the movie of his own money.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was dating at the time Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
I think I was dating Brad. I'm pretty sure we were dating then. And he was his really good friend, Bernie Colson, who was in, what's that movie? With Jodie Foster, where she gets gang raped. The Accused.
Oh, The Accused, yeah.
He was in The Accused, and he played the lead boy part, the one that, called the cops and said about the rape.
Yeah.
And he was a really good friend of Brad. I mean, they were super good friends. And then to find out that G. Gordon Liddy was in it, from the infamous, Richard Nixon impeachment, the break-in, the Watergate break-in, he was the mastermind of the break-in. And so anyway, I thought it'd be interesting to do.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like it was one of those, cliched, cheesy movies from the early 90s, but I mean, I like those. I like those kind of movies, but this one, I don't know. I just couldn't get into it. Maybe because it was directed by a commercial director.
Well, it's funny. His commercials are very good, but something about the way the movie was shot and then edited, everything was by the number. There wasn't any kind of loose, creative, and he directed it that way. He directed it like a math equation.
A math equation.
And it just doesn't work that way.
Oh, God, that's funny. That is really funny. So, last time that we talked, you were so sweet. We had a great conversation, and you were genuinely interested in what I had to say, and I was genuinely interested in what you had to say and stuff. And I told you about my accident and what have you and stuff. But there's so much more, like, leading up to that I wanted to talk to you about my journey.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be a good listener.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I grew up, middle class, and my parents, they at a certain point, my mom, she sued this company she was working for. She won lots of money, and we did pretty good up until the stock market crashed in 2000, which didn't really affect us that majorly, but later on, looking back, it probably did. And my parents worked a lot. My grandmother was raising me mostly at home while my parents were working and stuff. We were very close. My grandmother was this crazy Italian woman, and she was apparently very abusive to my mother growing up. And I saw her with a temper, but I never really saw, like, that part of her when my mom was growing up. I didn't find out about it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I find it interesting because the humanity, the cycle of humanity seems to always be when a parent makes a mistake that, kids, whether they're, as they get into their adolescence and then into their adulthood, they look back at their parents and they take things that their parents did, and they're very strong towards their parents. And I don't mean it quite this way, but just to make it more understandable, I'll use these words, to play the blame game, right?
Right.
My parent was like this. Like, it just seems like it's passed down through generations that we look back. I mean, there are people that have pretty unscathed childhoods and, two parents, loving household, or in a one-parent household and very, very loving family. But still, in most families, regardless of how loving they are, there are still those moments when things got tough, and
right.
And we look back and I guess it's, I don't know if it's abuse, but it's like abusive. I guess it's like when somebody does something stupid as opposed to them being stupid, that kind of thing. But I find it fascinating because God knows what my kids will say about me. For the couple of times I have to be hard on them in voice, with voice. I never spanked them or anything, but in voice, right, got tough. And those were especially during the years when, the young teenage years, when they were, quite a bit unruly at times. So it's like, who really started it?
I don't think
It's just fascinating.
Yeah, I don't think you have anything to worry about. I'm sure you've been just a terrific mother, Jill.
Oh my God! Well, my boys are so funny. Sometimes they go, "Oh, Mom, you're crazy," And then my response is, oh gosh, thank you. But okay, so going back, so I had to piggyback on that.
Yeah.
Thing of you saying about how your mom said that she thought her mom, was abusive at times, and yet your experience of your grandmother was not like that. That's fascinating. And normally, real abusers are abusers. They don't, the dog doesn't change its spot. Not saying that somebody isn't abusive at a certain given time.
Right. And my grandmother too. She was very religious, very conservative, and she tried to teach me that sex was a bad thing. And then I found out after she died that she cheated on my grandfather all the time.
Maybe that's why she thought it was a bad thing.
Yeah, after he died, maybe she regretted it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's, it's really funny. It often is that way, right? The people that stand in the most judgment, and then listening to their story, either they have excuses for it or really they are just full of shame about it and not quite sure how to navigate their thoughts and their feelings versus what they're doing. Humanity is fascinating.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, I grew up with Asperger's syndrome and this disease called Simpson-Golabi syndrome. When I was 5 years old, I looked like I was 10. I've always been big, and
oh, wow.
I got bullied a lot in school. I mean, mercilessly bullied. I mean, I was thrown. I had a garbage can thrown over me once, full of leaves. I mean, I was just bullied badly.
So sorry.
And my brother, who's 9 years older than me, he had been bullied. He was actually thrown into a garbage can and had his arm broken once.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That's awful.
Yeah. And people ask, why we were bullied. It's because we've both been kind of guys who, do things our way. We don't really follow in with a crowd, and we have a tendency to say what's on our mind and stuff. And a lot of people are afraid of that. And so basically, we were treated that way. But yeah, I mean, I was bullied a lot, and just I spent all my time in my room watching movies and stuffing my face, and that was just like my comfort zone and stuff. I didn't have very many close friends, and that was what I did pretty much, And my parents divorced when I was 13, and my mom left first. She left, and I was with my dad, my grandmother, and my brother. And my mother was just, trying to, work hard to get an apartment for her and I, which she did. When I was a freshman in high school, we moved in, and we've been together ever since. And
how old are you again?
36.
Oh, that's great.
I came very close to moving out on my own about 8 years ago. It didn't happen, though, unfortunately. I was supposed to move in with a friend of mine and stuff, and it just didn't work out and stuff, But now that, because I'm injured and I'm recovering from my accident, I don't want to be alone right now,
Understandable.
Yeah. So I graduated. So my senior year in high school, I wanted to move to LA, and I wanted to study improv at the Groundlings. That was my goal. And my mom told me I had to wait because I had to take care of my grandmother. She was dying. She had an aneurysm. And so I took care of my grandmother for 9 months while my mom worked during the day. And she died 3 days before my mom's birthday.
Oh my gosh.
February 18th, 2002, and we saw her die, and it was just traumatic, very traumatic. And so we moved out of the apartment the very next week after her funeral, and I went to go live with my dad for a while, and then my mom tried to find an apartment for us to move into, and she did. And it was this beautiful apartment, and it had this mom and pop video store across the street, that I was at every single day for the next year and a half that we lived there. And every now and then I came back to it, but then we were living in other apartments that had mom and pop video stores in walking distance too. And I bought all their VHS stock when all these stores closed down by 2006. Because I love movies and I love VHS, and I had to do it.
You still have all your VHSs?
Well, in 2014, we couldn't afford storage anymore, when we were, struggling and we were couch hopping and all that stuff. So we gave it away. We gave my VHS stock away to a record store that sold VHSs. I went back about a year later after my accident, and only one tape that I recognized I had was still there. And so
oh my God.
They were all gone. I had over 1,000 tapes, but I kept maybe 20 of them because they had sentimental value to me. But ever since coming back from that... What's that?
You sell them to the guy?
Yeah, we sold them to the guy.
Okay.
But
wow, so you must have got a good collection to have it all be gone.
Yeah, I had over 1,000 tapes, and I kept 20 of them. And I've bought several of them off of eBay since, now that everything's okay now. And so I'm getting a lot of them back. So I'm happy about that.
That's great. Hey, 1 second. I'm going to move a chair.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to make noise. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. There it is. Okay.
That wasn't noisy.
Didn't you hear it?
I heard it.
Really noisy.
I heard
nails against the chalkboard.
I heard it, but it wasn't noisy. I'm sure it was noisy on your end, though. So after my grandmother died, so that's what I did, was stuff my face, watch movies, and write bad screenplays. And my mom, she thought it would be a good idea that I go to junior college. And I did for a semester, and I just could not keep up with the work. The work was hard. I took a film class, and I had to write essays, and the guy told me I was a terrible writer, that I needed to take classes. I never did. I think I'm a great writer. He just had a bad opinion of how I write. And yeah. And so the junior college asked me to leave because I was being disruptive, and so I did. And I told my mom, I said, I want to be a comedian, and I want to act. And my mom said that those weren't realistic goals. And I know now in hindsight she said that only because I just, wanted to dive right into it without looking at everything I had to do and stuff. So I continued on just, watching movies, eating, that's it. And then I got a job at Long's Drugs in 2005. And a year later, that's when the magic starts of my next chapter in my journey. I go to the doctor to get my yearly physical. I find out that my cholesterol is very high, and it's attacking my heart. And I had to lose weight, or else I was going to die. And I did. I lost 130 pounds in a year.
Wow, how'd you do that?
They assigned me to a nutritionist, and she put me on a 1,900 calorie a day diet. And so I was eating lots of salads. So I worked a night shift at Long's Drugs, and so I would work from 7 to 11, but I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, go to Subway, and I would get the 2 sandwiches for $5 deal that they had during that time. And I would eat one and then eat the other one when I got home, and then I'd eat a salad, and then that was it. That was when I was working. When I was off, I would just eat 1 salad a day, and I would walk for hours and hours and hours. I did a lot of walking, and I drank a lot of water, no soda, no fast food, nothing, and I lost all that weight.
That's great. I think you told me that before. This sounds very familiar.
I probably told you a small part of it at least.
Yeah.
And stuff. Yeah. But that was what happened.
Wow, good for you. Wow, that's inspirational.
And yes, and then a week later, I started doing stand-up comedy. My friend who I grew up with had wanted to do stand-up comedy, and he told me he found this open mic in San Francisco. We went up there, and I found a new home on the stage doing stand-up. And so I started replacing eating food with writing jokes. Jokes were on my mind 24/7 after that. And I was writing jokes constantly. Even when I was working at Long's, I was writing jokes. And my mom's boyfriend at the time, who was like a stepdad to me, they've been together since, her divorce. He bought a house in Arizona after he lost his job and lost custody of his kids. He just didn't want to be in California anymore, and he wanted us to come move with him, and I reluctantly went. We left in February of '07, and from the moment we got there, nothing but a fight every day. It was terrible. And then end of April, I come back to California for the entire month. My dad, him and my stepmom lost their apartment. My stepmom's got a gambling problem, and they lost their apartment. And they were living at my uncle's house, so I stayed with them. And then I came back for the month of June, and the fighting had stopped a little bit, but not too much. But I had to go back to California. So I left July 4th. I was only supposed to be there till September, but I ended up staying, and my mom ended up coming in September after that. And my uncle I was staying with died in the process. He got hit by a train while he was drunk.
Oh, my God.
Lots of terrible stuff. Yeah.
He's had a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
God.
Lots of stuff. And my mom and I were staying at my brother's place, which was a nightmare. Every day there was a fight there, too. But by this time, I started working in this bar that I had been doing comedy at. After they canceled comedy night, they offered me a job as a bouncer, and I took it. And I was there 2.5 years, and it was the best time of my 20s. I should write a book about it. It was so insane. The things I learned about life in that place, and the people I met, and all the women I went home with. God, it was crazy. It was crazy. And then
I think bars, you're right about that. They're interesting places. I have to travel a lot. When I'm in airports, I don't like to fly. I don't always have a drink, but if my flight's later in the day, I'll have a cocktail before getting on the airplane.
Yeah.
Help takes the nerves away. And you always end up having these bizarre conversations with people that you would never normally have anywhere. But you're in a bar.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. But then I got fired in November of '09. I was on the verge of getting fired that entire year because I started messing around with barflies that the owner of the bar was messing around with too, and jealousy happened. And one night he wanted me to refuse service to this crazy disabled lady who was coming in for karaoke and not spending any money, and I refused to do it because she was disabled, and I got fired. And then I was working, and then I got a job at Kmart for the holiday season, and they kept me there. And then I got fired in March of '10 because there was this guy, he came in. He did this to a lot of people, I found out later. He was asking to have all this money put on these gift cards, and the credit cards he was using were not his. And he found a very clever way to get what he wanted with those credit cards that weren't his. Hopefully they caught the guy, because that is really scumbaggy to do that, So then, But then, going back, to October of '09, my mom lost her job. She was working in an office, and the guy that she was working for was a pig, and he underpaid her and all this stuff, and so he fired her. And so we had to struggle. So we went into my trust fund, and we used money for rent and food. And then we realized we had to stop doing that. So then my mom and we were volunteering at the food bank and getting food that way. And we had a cousin send us money. I mean, it was a really struggling time in 2010. and my mom had to have a surgery. She had diabetes, and she had to get gastric bypass. The doctor recommended it,
Wow.
Yeah, and so she got the surgery in November of 10, and it was a success. And then her boyfriend had just lost a house in Arizona, and he wanted to come back to California, and so my mom took him in, and I told her not to. Everyone told her not to, but she did it. And he came back. He took advantage of us bad. He got himself a girlfriend on the side who was a girl that he dated before he married his ex-wife, and next thing you know, he wiped out my entire trust fund and our life savings. I mean, we lost everything by 2013, and
Oh my God.
I was drinking bad.
Funny.
I was drinking bad by that point, and my disability money was taken away from me. I don't know why. I'm assuming somebody I was involved with called them up and said something bad or something. That's always been my suspicion. I don't know if it ever did happen, but next thing you know, we're couch hopping, and I got no work for 6 months. My bank account was inactive. If someone had to send me money, they had to send it to me through those MoneyGram machines at CVS.
Wow.
We collected change. We took it to the Coinstar machines and got cash that way. I mean, it was a really big struggle. I was sleeping on friends' couches. My mom, she would come back and forth up here to Redding and stay with my godparents, or go back to the Bay Area and stay in a hotel with me or something. It was a crazy time. And then I got my job as a security guard, and I was working at this college. Oh my God, I could write a book about that too. It was crazy.
You sound like you have a lot of books to write.
Oh yeah.
Got a lot going on.
Well, two at least, 2 or 3 at least. But and so then I did a lot of drinking during that period, and I was staying in these disabled group homes, which I was sexually assaulted in one. And then in January, that's when the accident happened, January 2015.
Yeah. How long did it take you again?
It took me, let's see, I was in the coma 30 days, woke up on my mom's birthday, and I was there until the day before my own birthday, which was June 5th.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then
Wow.
2 years later, I start this podcast, and here I am.
That's great. Look at it. So you're on an up. You're totally on an upswing.
Mm-hmm. I sure am. I've just this year especially has been an amazing year for the podcast, because I've interviewed people that I've been trying to get since day one that I didn't think I could, and then I did. And then there's people that recommended me for interviews and stuff, and it's just everything is starting to come together.
That's great. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Do you have any questions about this?
No, I was just listening. I'm thinking, boy, you've got a lot, a big task. I find in life, if you talk to almost anybody, you'll find that they have a huge past. It's like kind of the whole thing with celebrity and looking at celebrity life, which is what the general public does. Otherwise, these people wouldn't be so famous, because it's like they make movies. That's one career,
Mm-hmm.
and then as a result of TV or films, then they become celebrities, and the celebrity is a whole other career. But our society, for whatever reason, looks at celebrities and they look at their life, whatever, and we, as a society, we put a lot of attention on celebrity life.
Mm-hmm.
And what those people went through, but frankly, I think your everyday person that's out there than most celebrities.
Yeah, she's working on a book about my journey to this point and stuff, and she wants to make it into a movie. And back in April, I was offered a movie role by this producer, director, actor, writer that I've had on the podcast, who wants to cast me in a movie he's making about the Italian mafia and stuff. And she wants it to happen so he can make the book into a movie. And I want to get the screenplay that I have made into a movie and stuff. And that's one of the great many things that we're looking forward to in 2020. With my mom, she's going through this lawsuit with her work, for getting injured. If we win that case, we'll be able to live out there for a little while, and get things together and stuff. But meanwhile, we have a friend who's staying with us, and he wants to give us his RV trailer, and we're thinking of doing that too as an option. And one thing I really want to do next year, I want to get a crowdfunding together to put on a movie screening in LA.
Oh, like what kind of movie screening?
Well, like the one that the ones that they do at the New Beverly or the Egyptian, where they show the movie and then they do the Q&A with the actors afterwards.
Yeah, what movie?
I've been trying to think about that for the longest time, and I still haven't come up with one yet. At first I wanted to do one of the Friday the 13th movies. I thought next year would be a good year because it's the 40th anniversary of it, but I know that there's some legal stuff going on with the writer Victor Miller, who I had on this summer and stuff, and I kind of want to stay away from the franchise at the moment just because out of the respect of that,
Yeah.
But
Wow.
But I'll come up with something. But I haven't figured out yet what I want to show. But even if I just get one or two people from the movie to start off small, that's fine. I just know I can do this.
Well, absolutely. I'm such a huge fan of people living their dream and going for it. There's two things about that. It's interesting, again, in humanity, we hear people talk. It's like on one hand, people say, well, somebody expresses their dream. I don't know. They want to be an actor. They want to direct a movie. They want to anything. It's virtually anything in the arts. They could say they want to be a painter, right? It's just the arts. They want to be a musician. And there's a lot of poo-pooing of that, right? No, that's not. You have to make a living. Well, I look at it like both are true. I don't look at it like an either or. I don't think that formula in life is a winning formula. Things exist side by side. Like, for instance, we can be extraordinarily joyful people.
Mm-hmm.
Really live our life daily from an incredibly full of love, full of life, completely joyful place. That doesn't mean that when an event happens that you don't get sad. You're still a joyful person, even though in that moment you're feeling very sad. It's kind of like, I look at the sadness when it comes in. So during the day, the sun is always out, right? It's there.
Mm-hmm.
A sad day doesn't mean that the sun has gone away. It hasn't. It's just temporarily blocked by clouds. And really, they both exist at the same time, right?
Right.
Somewhere, from another point of view, it's bright and sunny out. Getting a plane, go up above the clouds, it's bright and sunny. So our lives are the same way. These things can coexist side by side. I don't think it's healthy, mentally healthy, for someone to abandon their making sure their needs are taken care of, that they can pay their bills, that they have a roof over their head. That doesn't keep you from living your dream. That enables and supports one going out to live their dream as well. Mm-hmm. So I think both are true. So I say, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it, live it, do it. That's the difference, really, between those that, the only difference is those that do and those that don't. Those are the people who make it, are the ones that do. It's really that simple.
Right.
I mean, I know I'm oversimplifying it for anyone that may be listening to this, but, with doing something comes perseverance. You have to stick with it. But you also, and with sticking with something, you also have to be mindful and very conscious about what we're doing. There's a difference between standing up for what we're doing, believing in it, and just being stubborn, not wanting to hear another person's ideas. And that can keep us stuck and keep us from what we want. So I think from that point of view, it's really all about consciousness. Everything is about consciousness, no matter what you do. If you don't have consciousness about it.
Yeah, the podcast world has really enabled all of us to, to have a voice and say what's on our mind and stuff. And to me, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to the world. It's the new talk radio, the new talk show, and you can talk about anything on it, and it's just something I hope the FCC never regulates, and I hope it'll be here forever now.
Yeah, me too. I love it too. I mean, I've been saying a lot of this kind of thing for a long time. I didn't know back in the 80s. I don't think there was the internet yet.
Nope.
But I always had a vision for the kinds of things that are happening now, and I'm like, I didn't know how to listen to myself about how I saw things going. I mean, I've even believed in short format, and for years, up until 3 years ago, somebody told me I was crazy. That's not popular. And I said, and it never will be. Unless somebody does it. So you can't be afraid of what hasn't been done before. You can't be so stuck in boxes and so formulated that we're unable to think outside of a box. I mean, we want boundaries. Boundaries are like discipline. We need discipline in order to rely on stability. As an example, the greatest discipline I can think of is gravity, right? We count on gravity. That's discipline. If it's not there, we would no longer exist. So it's important to have disciplines that are reliable. But within that, there can be, it's because we're solid in that discipline that above that we can have total freedom. Within it, above it, lots and lots of freedom to create our own reality, wonderful reality.
Mm-hmm. I have very few boundaries, but I respect other people's boundaries, if they let me know what they are and stuff.
Yeah. Understandable. But Tommy, you're so great. Good for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm taking it each day by day. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be having my first physical in like 3 years, and I got to lose weight again because the depression from after the accident set in. I gained weight again, and
how much weight did you gain?
A lot. I'm too embarrassed to say how much, but a lot. It's almost as much as I was the first time around when I lost, and I have to lose it. And I'm hoping this doctor. I've never been to this doctor before up here. Hopefully this doctor will recommend something that I can do, because I can't exercise or like I used to, because of the metal in my leg and stuff. I mean, I can walk, but I was reading, out here, even though it's getting close to winter time and it's getting cold out here, like walking too much, with the heat and having a stent in your heart doesn't mix very well, So hopefully the doctor will help me.
Oh gosh, I'm going to say the
Oh,
I'm sure the doctor will.
thank you.
He or she definitely will.
Yeah.
And,
I don't like being overweight. Yeah.
you can, though. I mean, I would never I'm dying to say, oh, do this diet, that diet. Make some recommendations, but I'm not a doctor. And your situation is too unique and too subjective, I think, for someone to give you unsolicited advice.
Mm-hmm.
You really need that doctor's care.
Yeah.
So whatever choices you make, they're really healthy for you and safe, right? Safe. We need you safe. We will be here on the planet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So back in September when I was in LA that weekend, the weekend that you couldn't meet up with us. I was at the convention, Son of Monsterpalooza. It's gotten so huge. I'll tell you, there were so many people there. It was crazy. And that Saturday night, we met up with another guest friend of mine for dinner at Shakey's in West Hollywood. And then I went to the Comedy Store, saw some really funny comedians in the main room. And then we went to the midnight screening of Barbara Crampton's new movie, Reborn. And it was a great movie.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a great movie. Saw Barbara for a little bit afterwards. She told me I looked like I had lost weight. I have a little bit, but not as much as I'd like,
Yeah. Well, you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the old Nike thing, just do it. You will.
I will, yes.
But here's one piece of unsolicited advice I would say. Don't wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? Even
right.
The slightest movement forward is movement forward. It's kind of like, have you ever been in a car? At a stoplight, and all of a sudden you feel like you're going backwards, and that's because the car to the side of you is moved forward. So it gives you a sensation that you're going backwards.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same way in life when we're not always moving towards something. I don't think it matters as much the speed in which we go, although, much faster to get somewhere in a plane than it is on a tricycle. But nevertheless, what's important is momentum, and momentum is just moving it forward. So I would highly support you in saying whatever you can do today, the smallest thing forward. That way you're on the journey. It's not like you're looking at your path. You're actually on your path.
Mm-hmm. I have been thinking about that a lot, and not just my path, but also certain things from my past that I regret. Even though I can't go back and everything, I still regret certain things that could have been avoided. And one of my biggest fears, about doing what I do now and stuff is ageism. Ageism is going around a lot in Hollywood. And I'm going to be 37 next year, and I'm just. But my biggest fear is being told I'm too old now.
Well, you're talking to the wrong person because I'm 56.
I know you started, really young acting.
Kind of, not too young, but I mean, I think at a normal age, probably just a couple of years younger than a lot of other actors.
Yeah.
So by the time I was 19, I think I started working. 18 and I worked, but in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I just, I look at your IMDb and I'm like, God, you were shooting so many great movies. I mean, you were just so damn lucky,
I guess.
So I
don't really look at it that way, and I guess I try not to look at it. It's just, I really don't think about it. It just was what it was, you know?
Yeah, I understand.
But again, that ageism thing, you know, a lot of these things can be excuses, or it's not to do what we want to do, so we quit before we start.
Right.
So, and again, it's like the odds maybe are tougher. I don't even, how would I put it? The odds are tougher because there might be more obstacles. But it's like, if you know the obstacles are there, then you're prepared to meet them head on. Right? So still,
right.
It doesn't mean you can't achieve your goal. It just means, oh, wait, at this time, there's a few more obstacles. You have to go about things a little bit different. I tend to look at these things really practically.
Right.
You know, and I try and visualize something in my mind as an analogy to help me understand it from a practical point of view. You know, it's like, okay, so if I look at it like I'm in one location and I'm trying to get to another location that's a mile away, at a certain age I got there really super fast because I had so much going for me at that time to propel me to get there that fast. Well, maybe now I can still get there, but it's like there's an impediment. Maybe a cast on my leg slows me down, or not literally a cast on my leg, but you know, it's just different. There are things now that just change the pace of things. But I'm not even so sure of that if we really understand our obstacles and just find a way to get around them. Go around them, get over them. They're not stopped. They're there as new challenges in life, is all. They're not there to stop us, those challenges.
That's very beautiful, Jill. Very beautiful. You're so right.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I mean, because I'm saying this to you, but this is what I tell myself every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm sitting here working on a show and a musical that we're hoping to open in 2021. And, you know, I'm finishing up my book, and I have something new that I'm doing that I'm not going to talk about. And I've got my Sugar and Screen project I did with Suzanne that we're still working on. We had a glitch due to a mistake I made, which I won't go into. But I made a mistake, a technical error. And anyway, but again, it was just an obstacle. It just slowed us down for a minute, a mistake I made. But it doesn't stop it. It might seem like it stops the momentum, but it's like in music. You know, if you have a song and all of a sudden it slows down and there's like a pause in the music.
Mm-hmm.
It backs up. The song didn't end. It just took a little pause.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how is Sugar and Scream going?
It's going good. We got a lot of challenges. We shot the first 4 shows. We, you know, and then some things happened in my life outside of my mistakes that really, I mean, I feel really bad for Suzanne because she was like right there ready to go, and my life just took a left turn with some personal challenges. You know, my mom has had, I think, 3 falls now since that time, and that was like 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, broken wrist, frozen hip. I mean, it's just been like really hard. And had a couple trips. I my rental property as I rent it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some tricky challenges there. And I miss him and my dog. It was so hard, my dog. Right after we shot it, very soon afterwards, about 3-4 weeks later, came down with diabetes. And then he went blind. Literally, Sunday morning, he walked with me, into the kitchen, and then we walked outside, and then it was like 11 in the morning, and I said, come on, let's go, and he went to follow me, and in like one moment he could see, and the next moment he was totally blind, and then 6 weeks later he died. It was so tough, so tough.
I'm so sorry.
On me, because that little dog was he's really my son's dog, but my youngest son, but he's away at school, and I love that dog. That dog just, that dog came to us. My son was the victim of a crime, which is why we got the dog. They recommended to us that if he wanted the dog, to get him the dog, it was for his 10th birthday. We got him the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was December of 2007. And then in June of 2008 is when my partner died.
Oh.
And that was just right around the corner. And so Hercules was still a little puppy. And we saw each other through the last, nearly 12 years together. And 11, 12 years, whatever it's been exactly. And so he was like my little guy. He was my son's dog, but you know how that is. He was really mine.
Yeah.
I'll always say he was my son's dog, but I did all the taking care of. And so that was it's just like that kind of stuff between my mom and then someone close in my family, a sister-in-law, her dad died, and all this in the last 6 months. It's just been a very strange, very, very strange time. And then I went back to Sugar and Spring, and I just made a catastrophic error, technical error, with the footage. And I was able to recover it, but it was very timely and very costly to get it back. And so just kind of moving back into all that now. It was very hard because I have so many responsibilities, but we're doing it. Oh my gosh, it's definitely going to be there for everyone in 2020.
Good. I'm glad.
We have a little bit longer of a pause than I ever could guess or imagine.
Yeah, Suzanne and Judy, they still haven't done the show, and I've talked to a couple other podcasters. They're like, yeah, I don't think they're going to talk to any of us, But
well, everyone's different.
Yeah. Do you remember that 80s movie actress Michelle Mayrink?
No.
She was in Revenge of the Nerds, Valley Girl. She was the star of National Lampoon's Joy of Sex, and she was in Real Genius. And she's a Canadian actress. This one podcaster I know, he asked her if she would be on his podcast and interview her, right? Well, she said yes, but she didn't know what a podcast was. She thought it was a magazine article. So she called him, and he said, okay, I'm going to record I'm going to do my intro, just stay on the line and stuff. And she was like, wait, why are you doing an intro? And he says, it's a podcast. And she's like, well, what's a podcast? And he said, it's kind of like, radio, but for the internet. And she was like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't do this. And he said, why? And she was like, my voice is very old sounding now, and that's why I don't make appearances anywhere or do anything. I want everyone to remember me like I was in the 80s. Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
I'm not commenting.
Yeah.
I'd rather not comment.
I thought that was very endearing for something to say, because I do know that there are some people out there that were like that. You know, some actresses in the golden age of Hollywood, when they got out of acting and they disappeared, they didn't want the public to know what they looked like, you know, before they died. You know.
Well, here's the thing about that.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't look like the way they were in movies either.
Exactly.
It's like nobody gets up in the morning and has somebody do their makeup and decide what clothes they should wear and do their hair. I mean, it's just not reality to life. I remember many years ago, I did the mini-series Billionaire Boys Club.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on two nights. I think probably 2 nights in a row. I'm guessing it was 2 nights in a row. But anyway, after the first night, I was down in the Sherman Oaks area on Ventura Boulevard, and I walked into a jewelry store, and somebody in the store recognized me and said something. So the girl that was helping me says, "Oh, so you're an actress?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, what things have you been in? Because I don't know who you are." And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I do remember how I said, "Oh, well," and then last night I was in Billionaire Boys Club.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "No, you're not that girl." She goes, "That girl is so pretty."
Oh my fucking God! I can't believe she said that.
Yeah, I swear to God. I'll never forget it. I will never forget it because she said it like I was disgusting the way I looked. Mm-hmm. I just had probably on a pair of jeans, t-shirt, my pennies, no makeup on. You know, and in Billionaire Boys Club, they really made it really super strong 80s. So it was like big bouffant hair and big shoulder pads and a ton of makeup.
Oh my God.
But in real life, you know, I didn't wear makeup. I didn't do any of that. I was very down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
Wore my jeans and pennies. Never wore high heels back then, ever.
You were a tomboy.
Sometimes early in my career, I would get these commercials, and they would give me the doll-up commercials, where, you know, they doll you up. And I was always like, "I'm not that girl. Why are they giving me this job?" But I got them. But in movies, I didn't get that. I really got Girl Next Door.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, I mean.
But yeah, that's exactly what she said to me. "No, you're not that girl. That girl was so pretty."
God, that's so wrong. That reminds me of something I said to a Mexican when I was 5 years old in kindergarten. I wasn't trying to be racist, but it came off that way. There's a Mexican kid in my class, and I said to him, "Take your mask off because you're really white." And I got in trouble. I didn't mean anything by it, you know. I was just, you know, trying to be clever, and I wasn't.
Well, probably if you go by today's standards.
Yeah.
If you go with anybody's background who's over a certain age, they probably have said something that by today's standards would be totally inappropriate.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of regular conversations that I would hear other people all the time. Words people use out in the world, you know, they might say, "Oh, he's a homo," or "Oh, you know what I mean."
Oh yeah.
And it's like, just that stuff it was never nice, but people tolerated it. Now, you know, rightly so, all that is, it's not tolerated. It's just not nice. We just shouldn't name call and people, and I don't like that kind of stuff.
No, me neither.
I'm against political correctness, except in that area.
Me too, Jill. Me too.
I believe in being polite. I don't look at being polite as political correctness. I think it's being polite. It's manners.
Yeah.
know.
This one friend of mine who's been a guest on the show, she has a web series with her roommate who's in a wheelchair. She has muscular dystrophy and stuff, and we've talked and stuff, and we've said, she has said that, the people who make fun of people with disabilities, they're the ones who are really retarded.
Well, it's true. Me with my vitiligo, that's, one of the motivating factors in writing my book is what I went through with vitiligo, where I lost pigmentation. And I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky. I think I'm unlucky. By appearance, it may seem lucky. I really don't know.
Yeah, I was listening to the podcast interview you did on Chris Contra's podcast back in September,
Yeah.
and I heard you mention that you were writing the book.
Yeah, writing the book, but I've had the experience that I didn't think I would ever have in my adult life, and that's I don't even want to say prejudice. I feel it's more ignorance. I suppose it's prejudice, but it's really ignorance of, people with children literally pulling their children to get away from me like they might catch it. It's just, if you touch my skin, it's perfectly smooth. Just the color is blotchy. I'm white, and then on my normal skin,
Yeah.
which is darker, it's white olive skin, is my normal skin that no longer exists.
Yeah.
Except on certain parts of my body. I have it on my torso and on my legs. The upper half of my legs and my torso and up some part of going up towards my shoulder. I still have some pigmentation.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom half of my leg, the limbs of my arms, except in the center part on the inside, soft part of the elbow, on both arms, it's dark right in that center piece at your elbow, but on the inside, soft part. But other than that, I'm like white as a ghost. I have zero pigmentation, and I can get second-degree burn in the sun in no time at all, because I have no defense against the sun. I mean, I am white now. But, yeah. I have experienced that ignorance from people, and it was painful, because you already feel so bad about yourself, so ashamed of how you look and all of that, And
Yeah.
I say I'm lucky, but I don't like saying I'm lucky because it means I'm still ill physically, for my body to keep fighting my pigmentation. So it's never arrested in me. It keeps attacking my system, which is why I'm turning white. So I could say, I'm lucky that I'm all basically on my face one color now. And to look at me, people just think I'm a very white person. Mm-hmm. They don't realize that I've lost my pigmentation. So I don't know if that's lucky or unlucky. I think it's unlucky. It's only lucky for the sake of appearance. But it's not ever about appearances, is it?
Yeah.
So I'm unlucky.
Well, I saw the pictures you posted, and I see nothing but beauty when I look at you, no matter what.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. It's very sweet and very kind of you.
I don't judge anybody, I mean, I'm a guy. I'll tell you something. When I was working as a bouncer in that bar, I went home one night with a girl in a wheelchair. That's how non-judgmental I am.
Oh, that's, if we could all be that way, we all need to up our game in the non-judgmental department of life.
I was in special ed in school. I was bullied a lot. I saw kids that were getting bullied and stuff. And I always had their back when they got bullied and stuff. And they had my back too. and just I know what it's like. I know how it feels. I'm still, being called stupid by people these days. Even at the age of 36. I told my mom that a couple of months ago. She didn't even know that, right? And she was really, really sad when she heard that. She thought that it would be over by now, but it hasn't. And I tried not to
Well,
let it.
that's again so
Not,
ignorant of people to say and so unkind. We all
yeah.
do stupid things, but we're not stupid. Everyone, including Bill Gates, everyone does stupid things.
Speaking of Bill Gates, whenever people are jealous of me, I say you have hundreds more people to be jealous of, especially Bill Gates. Look at all the money he's got.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tommy, it's been great to talking with you. It's been great talking with you.
Yes, Jill, it's been magical and stuff. I wanted to let you know, last week I talked to Peter Foldy on the show,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that you're just a lovely person, and that he said a lot of great things about you. Next month I have Googie Gress coming on.
Oh, Boogie, I love him.
Yes, and a couple months ago I bought the short version of Babes in Toyland on VHS. I saw it at this little gift shop that had VHSs.
Awesome.
Yes. And so, Jill, I hope you have a happy holiday season. Next spring, when I'm in town, let's get together.
Yeah, hey, where was Monster Palooza now?
Next spring, it will be in Pasadena.
So they don't do it in Burbank anymore?
They only do it in the fall in Burbank.
Oh, and then it's in Pasadena in the spring?
Yes. They started doing that in 2016. I personally think both of them should be in Pasadena because it's a much more bigger venue. The Burbank one is just super tiny.
Yeah. Why not just do one and have it be a big one?
Yeah, I don't know. It's corporate decisions. Oh, really quickly, Jill?
Yeah.
Really quickly, couple jokes here. Everybody knows the old nursery rhyme about the old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many kids she didn't know what to do. What did her right leg say to her left leg?
I don't know.
Nothing. They never met.
That's pretty funny.
What's the difference between a Rubik's Cube and a guy's dick?
Oh, God. Do I want to know?
It's predictable. The more you play with it, the harder it gets.
Okay, that's too much information
Okay.
for public podcasting.
Jill, thank you so much. I can't tell you.
You're welcome.
I can't tell you enough. Just I love talking to you, and with all the stuff you've told me about what you've been through. I mean, it makes me feel that God brought us together for a reason.
Oh, that's usually the case, right? How our angels orchestrate everything in life for us, for our greatest path. I really believe that our angels, our guardian angels, are always conspiring on our behalf. Just a lot of time we're not listening, we're not seeing the signs, but they're always there. We got to tune in our consciousness, raise the stakes, so we can hear their communications.
Yes, we do.
That's my last note.
Okay. Jill, happy holidays. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, John. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Well, there you have it. Jill Schoelen. Ain't she a sweetheart? I just love Jill. Like I said, God brought us together for a reason. Talk about all the adversity we've triumphed over and our human spirit, and it's just amazing. It's just fucking amazing the people I get to talk to. It really is. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.